On the morning I was supposed to lose everything, I opened my eyes and woke up 1 month in the past with the power no one should ever have, hearing the true thoughts of the people smiling at me. My fiancé called me paranoid. The girl who sweetly called me sister was already planning how to ruin my life. In my last life, I lost because I trusted the wrong people. In this life, I'll make every fake innocent mask fall apart. Heart on Speaker, Chapter 1. Monday Morning Meeting. Monday morning meetings always smelled the same: burnt coffee, overworked air conditioning, and the stale bravery of sleepy faces pretending to look sharp. Anna Vaughn sat at the far end of the conference table with cold fingers pressed to the edge of her notebook, eyes fixed on the quarterly plan glowing on the screen. Ethan Quinn, her team lead, stood near the projector with a laser pointer in hand. Director Daniel Grant sat to the right, glasses low on his nose, already wearing the expression of a man who expected answers before excuses. Across from Anna sat Lily Monroe, the newest member of the team, 3 months in, soft voice, careful smile, harmless as pale tea. Anna's heart stumbled. She had already lived this moment. Not in the vague way a person sometimes mistakes déjà vu for memory. She knew the exact angle of Ethan's shoulders, the loose thread at Daniel's second shirt button, the order of the handouts on the table. 7 months ago, this same meeting had started the slow collapse of her first life in this office. She had been blamed for failures that were never entirely hers, edged out of group decisions, watched with suspicion by the people she once trusted, and pushed into a version of herself that was always apologizing, always overworking, always one breath from breaking. By the time her first life ended, she had collapsed alone near a hospital stairwell on a rain-soaked night, too exhausted to defend herself one more time. Between that ending and this impossible return, she remembered only a stretch of white silence and a voice with no pity in it, no cruelty either. It had sounded like someone reading an audit report. "Only after your life ended did you learn the truth," the voice had said. The office had been hearing the thoughts you kept buried, and the one who lit every match was the person you believed you should keep forgiving. Then she opened her eyes and found herself back here. "This pitch for North Star Beauty will determine who leads the strategic account for the next 6 months, Ethan was saying, exactly as he had the first time. "I need 1 primary presenter and 1 support lead." In her first life, Lily had turned toward her right here with that perfect blend of sweetness and tact and gently volunteered Anna for the leading role. On the surface, it had looked generous. In reality, it had been a neat little stage trap. The most difficult pieces of the account, the unfinished files, the missing cost assumptions, the weak points hidden in draft research, would already be waiting for her. Anna would step into the spotlight with incomplete materials, stumble in front of leadership, and Lily would rescue the moment just enough to seem thoughtful without losing the chance to make Anna look disorganized. And on cue, Lily spoke. "If no one minds, I think Anna is the best fit to lead. She has more experience, and she understands female customers better than the rest of us." In her first life, that line had almost made Anna emotional. She had been that hungry to be seen as valued. This time, all she felt was a thin film of cold sweat blooming over her palms. Do not react too fast. Because she remembered something else now. Something she had never understood until it had already ruined everything. When her emotions rose too sharply, the thoughts she tried hardest to swallow sometimes broke loose and reached the people around her, not in full context, not with any kindness, but as sharp fragments. In the past, she had thought people were misunderstanding her tone. She had never guessed they were hearing pieces of the bitterness she had not said aloud. Anna lowered her gaze and inhaled once, carefully. "Do not let it happen the same way again." Ethan looked at her. "Anna?" The room waited.
Lily's expression remained clear and open, as if she truly wanted the best outcome for everyone. Last time, Anna had looked at that face and thought, Lily is kind. She's helping me. A few coworkers had lifted their heads immediately, as if some invisible sound had crossed the table. Yes, exactly like that. The speaker in her chest. Anna tightened her grip on her pen and forced her thoughts onto a different track. Do not think about the trap. Do not think about fake kindness. Think clearly. Think slowly. Say only what can stand in daylight. Team leads are judged by process, she told herself, line by line. If the account packet is incomplete and I accept the lead anyway, the whole group pays for it. This time, no one glanced around in confusion. Director Grant merely raised a brow. Ethan lowered the laser pointer. A chair shifted somewhere near the back of the room. They had heard that. Anna looked up and smiled for the first time that morning, calm enough to unsettle herself. I can lead the pitch, she said evenly, but I want the full input package by 11 today. User research, trial budget, and the competitor benchmark. If the data packet isn't complete by then, I'd prefer to serve as co-lead rather than take the front position blindly. A strategic account shouldn't be left to luck. Silence held for 2 beats. Lily reacted first. Oh, I thought you already had everything, she said, voice dipping in exactly the right place. You sounded very confident the other day. Anna already knew this line too. In her first life, she had bitten back hurt, agreed to everything, and taken the risk just to avoid looking defensive. She had thought that was maturity. It had only made her easier to use. Now she met Lily's eyes with a gentleness no one could criticize. Then maybe there was a misunderstanding, Anna said. I'm confident because I trust our workflow. If materials are missing and someone is still asked to lead, the person doing the work ends up carrying a very unfair burden. A few people near the middle of the table exchanged quick looks. Ethan gave a small nod. Director Grant set his pen down. That's reasonable, he said. Lily, you're consolidating the input packet, correct? Send the full set to Anna by 11. Copy Ethan and me. For the briefest fraction of a second, Lily's smile hardened. Oh, of course.
The meeting moved on, but Anna spent the rest of it monitoring herself like someone walking across a frozen lake. She still did not know why this office could hear her thoughts, or why the effect seemed stronger here than anywhere else. She only knew one thing now. The phenomenon was real, and for the first time in either of her lives, she knew it was there. When the meeting ended, people rose more slowly than usual, some glancing at Anna with the cautious curiosity of people revising an old conclusion. Ethan stopped her in the hall. You're different today. She let out a faint breath that might have become a laugh. In a good way or a bad way? Too early to say. His expression was unreadable, but not cold. More rational than before. The tightness in her throat startled her. In her first life, Ethan had eventually grown distant from her, not out of malice, but because he believed what he thought he was sensing around her: irritation, judgment, resentment, emotional static with no explanation attached. He had never known how often Lily provoked those reactions and then stepped back before anyone noticed the cause. Anna had never known how to explain it either. This time, she said quietly, I'll do it well. I know, Ethan replied, and walked away. Anna stood alone beside the glass corridor. Below her, the lobby glowed bright and full, people moving through it like a current. In the reflection, she saw a younger face than the one she had carried at the end, fewer shadows beneath the eyes, more life still fighting to remain visible. Anna! Lily approached with a thin stack of papers in her arms. If I said anything earlier that upset you, I'm sorry. I really was only trying to support you. The low ponytail, the mild eyes, the careful tremor in the voice. In her old life, that image had made Anna feel monstrous whenever she defended herself. Every moment of discomfort had turned inward until she became the villain in her own mind. This time, she refused that part. She smiled, light as air. "It's all right. I know you always mean well." And then a thought rose inside her, clear, unexpected, impossible to soften before it escaped. Someone who truly means you well would never push you forward before the bridge is finished. At the pantry down the hall, two coworkers who had been pouring water froze for half a second. Anna did not need to look up to know what had happened. When she finally met Lily's gaze again, the sweetness in the younger woman's face had slipped just enough to show something hard underneath.
Chapter 2. Thoughts on Speaker. Lily's email arrived at 11:08 a.m. The subject line was polite. The body was brief. The attachments were named correctly and arranged neatly. But when Anna opened them one by one, the same pattern she remembered from her first life appeared immediately. 2 customer segmentation tables missing, the competitor benchmark outdated by an entire month, and, most important of all, the test budget completely blank. The first time around, Anna had skimmed the file names, assumed the package was complete, and thrown herself into the work. During the rehearsal, the client had asked exactly the one question tied to the missing budget line, and she had frozen in front of everyone. Ethan had not been able to recover the moment fast enough. Director Grant's face had gone flat. Lily had widened her eyes and said, in a voice shaking with innocence, "I thought I sent that to her already." That had been enough. From then on, Anna had become the difficult one, the one who failed under pressure and then took it out on everyone else. Not this time. She read every page slowly, made a list of the gaps, and drafted a reply with a steadier hand than she felt. "Thanks, Lily. I received the files. 3 items are still missing. 1, the customer segmentation tables. 2, the updated benchmark for this month. And 3, the trial budget assumptions. Please send them before 2 p.m., copying Ethan and Director Grant for tracking." Her hand hovered over the mouse for a second. In the past, she had hated copying managers on issues like this. It had felt dramatic, petty, almost mean. She had thought that avoiding friction made her a better colleague. In truth, it had only trained everyone to let her absorb the consequences in silence. She clicked send. 5 minutes later, Lily appeared at her desk with a salad bowl in one hand and a look of wounded surprise already arranged on her face. "You haven't gone to lunch yet?" Anna looked up. "Not yet." "I saw your email." Lily bit her lip lightly. "I do have those files. I just thought maybe you didn't need them because you've handled this kind of thing before. If I made you copy management over something so small, they're probably going to think I'm careless." The words were wrapped in softness, but the blade was clean. She was already turning her own omission into someone else's guilt. Anna closed her laptop and gestured to the empty chair across from her. "Then all the more reason to fix it quickly," she said, voice gentle enough not to draw attention. "What leadership thinks matters less than whether we have what we need by this afternoon. And if you're worried about being judged, we can stick to a checklist next time." Lily did not sit. She only tightened her fingers around the salad container. The thought that surfaced in Anna's mind was calmer than the sentence she had spoken. She isn't afraid people will think she's sloppy. She's afraid they'll notice she left the packet incomplete on purpose. At the neighboring desk, Megan from accounting coughed into her straw and looked away a little too fast. An intern lifted his head from his monitor with a baffled frown. Anna still could not get used to the sight of other people reacting to words she had not spoken. But instead, she observed. The effect seemed strongest when her thoughts were clean, direct, and emotionally charged. It also spread first to people closest to her.
Lily forced a smile. "You're right. I'll send everything now." She walked off in her cream-colored skirt, slow enough to invite sympathy, quick enough to avoid further questions. Anna stayed still for a moment after that, listening to the office move around her, the microwave beeping, someone laughing near the windows, the printer stuttering through another run. None of it felt like a dream. It felt terrifyingly real. A second life was not mercy unless she learned how to use it. She could not keep surviving this one ambush at a time. If she wanted to change the ending, she needed to understand the speaker inside her. Why only her? Why only here? And why did Lily always seem to know exactly when to push until Anna's emotions broke surface tension? A knock sounded lightly against her desk divider. Ethan. "Have you eaten?" "No. Come with me." In her first life, their professional relationship had cooled almost from the start. Ethan had never been openly unkind, but he had kept a careful distance, as if her emotional weather made the entire room less predictable. Now he was standing here with his phone in one hand and no sign that the invitation meant anything dramatic at all. "Is something wrong?" she asked. "Lunch first." The 12th floor cafeteria looked over the river, crowded at noon but noisy in a way that somehow made serious conversations easier. Ethan chose 2 simple lunch sets, sat across from her, and got straight to the point. "When did you realize Lily left the files out on purpose?" Anna nearly paused with her chopsticks in mid-air. "I just checked more carefully." He nodded once. "That's exactly why I'm asking. Until recently, careful wasn't your style. You usually carried missing work yourself and hoped no one noticed." The truth of it warmed her face. He was not mocking her. That almost made it worse. In her first life, she had been so desperate not to look difficult that she made herself infinitely convenient. She covered gaps, she absorbed blame, she called it teamwork until it nearly erased her. "I'm trying to change that," she said. "Good." He lifted his spoon, then set it back down. "But don't only change how you speak, change how you decide whom to trust." The sentence found the deepest bruise in her without effort. After a long silence, Anna asked quietly, "If there were things about this I couldn't explain clearly, would you still believe me?" "It depends on the thing." She laughed once under her breath. "You're painfully consistent." "If I weren't practical, I wouldn't survive this job." He studied her for a moment. "But I'll say this, since this morning I've heard some strange things." Her pulse kicked. "You heard it too?" "Not just me." He lowered his voice. "People near you keep catching lines in their heads, like you're speaking straight into their ear, and the lines usually match what you're thinking or what you're about to say." Anna tightened her fingers around the spoon. "Doesn't that bother you?" "It's inconvenient," he said flatly, "not frightening. More important question, does it affect the work?" That was Ethan. Even when reality behaved like something out of a fever dream, his first concern remained operational risk. Her eyes stung anyway. "Yes," she admitted. "If I get too overwhelmed or too angry, people hear thoughts I haven't filtered yet. I ruined a lot because of that." He sat with that in silence, sunlight sliding across the river behind him in a strip of white metal. "Then, from now on," he said at last, "don't handle sensitive things alone. Anything related to files, deadlines, or task ownership goes into email or the group chat. A record protects you better than sincerity."
Anna looked at him for a long moment. There were days in her first life when one direct conversation like this might have saved months of damage, but those days were gone. This one was here. By 1:55 p.m., Lily sent the missing files. She followed up with a private message that read, "Good thing you reminded me. I really am clumsy sometimes." Anna smiled at the screen. She did not answer privately. Instead, she took a screenshot, saved it in a new folder called North Star Progress, and created subfolders beneath it: Input Materials, Communications, Revision History, Backup. It was the kind of behavior she once would have hated in herself. Back then, keeping evidence had felt cold, defensive, small. She had believed that if she stayed genuine enough, other people would naturally be fair. After one lost life, she knew better. Boundaries did not weaken kindness. They kept it from being used as a weapon against you. Near the end of the day, Megan came by with a small yogurt drink and set it on Anna's desk. "You barely touched lunch," she said, then hesitated. "And I should probably say this morning I heard a few of those lines too." Anna looked up. Megan smiled awkwardly. "I can't explain it, but they didn't sound like the thoughts of a bad person, just someone who had been swallowing too much for too long." For a second, Anna could not answer. In her first life, Megan had been one of the first people to pull away, not because she hated Anna, but because she was uneasy around someone whose unspoken thoughts seemed sharp and chaotic. Now the current had shifted, just slightly, and Megan had stepped toward her instead of away. "Thank you," Anna said. When Megan left, Anna leaned back in her chair and let the bluish light from her screen wash over her hands. Only half a day had passed, but the direction of things had already changed. Not enough to relax, more than enough to hope. Across the aisle, Lily was laughing with two male coworkers, still playing the role she wore best, sweet, a little fragile, easy to protect. No one could decide she was dangerous from a handful of tiny incidents. Anna did not need them to decide yet. She only needed the truth to reveal itself one layer at a time. And inside her, sharp as new thread, a thought rose and spilled into the space around her. If I want to beat someone who makes weakness look beautiful, I can't only be strong. I have to be steadier, more patient, and more gently precise than she is. 3 desks nearby, people looked up at once. For the first time since coming back, Anna did not pretend not to notice.
Chapter 3. The First Cup of Tea. By the 3rd day after her return, the office had shifted into sprint mode. The internal rehearsal for the North Star pitch was scheduled for the next morning, the final trial run before Director Grant and Ethan approved the deck for the client presentation. The whole department felt stretched tight. Every printer run sounded urgent. Every request landed with the energy of a countdown clock. Even the people walking past the pantry looked like they were moving through timed air. Lily chose exactly that atmosphere to begin her first full performance. At 5:15 p.m., Anna was standing by the counter making black coffee when Lily entered carrying too many papers in one arm and a cup of hot oolong in the other. The pantry door had barely opened when Lily gave a startled little cry, as if someone had nearly bumped into her. The tea tipped in a golden arc and spilled directly onto the edge of the color proofs lying beside Anna's laptop. "Oh no, I'm so sorry." The panic in Lily's voice was flawless. Papers slipped from her hands onto the floor. Her eyes reddened in a single beat. 2 designers outside the glass wall turned immediately at the sound. 7 months ago, Anna had snapped on instinct. She had spent an entire afternoon printing those sample layouts. One sharp line, "Can't you watch where you're going?" had been enough to start the office rumor that she was harsh with new hires and impossible to please. This time, she did not move quickly at all. She set down her coffee, looked at the widening stain, and reached for a stack of paper towels with hands steady enough to surprise herself. "It's all right," she said. "Did you burn your hand?" Lily blinked, caught off rhythm. "No, but I ruined your prints." "Not ruined." Anna lifted the top sheets and checked the damage. "The original files are still on my laptop. Help me pick up the rest and we'll reprint what we need." The 2 designers exchanged a glance and, seeing no explosion to witness, drifted off again. Lily crouched to gather the fallen pages. Her movements remained soft and shaky, but Anna saw the tiny fracture at the corner of her mouth, the one that appeared when a carefully laid trap failed to spring. This scene had been built to draw anger. With no anger, it lost half its power. A quiet thought moved through Anna's mind. She wanted this to prove she's clumsy and pitiable, and me cold the moment my work is touched. At the pantry door, footsteps slowed. Someone had paused there. Anna did not need to look up to guess it was Megan and one of the content interns.
She knelt too, straightening the scattered stack with Lily instead of standing over her. Next time, use both hands or make 2 trips. Hot tea and heavy papers together are just asking for burns. Lily looked up at her with eyes glossy enough to invite protection from anyone watching. You're really not angry? Why would I be? Anna smiled. Anyone can make a mistake.
But in her mind, another line rose, sharper than the one she had spoken. Someone who made a real mistake would look at the spill first, not at the other person's reaction. Lily paused so slightly most people would have missed it. The footsteps outside stopped altogether. I'll reprint them for you, Lily said. Thank you. Use printer 3. Printer 2 shifts the colors. Lily left with the stack pressed to her chest, posture still graceful, steps just a little faster than before. Anna watched her go and felt something colder than victory settle inside her. People like Lily survived by studying where other people's kindness bent. Anyone afraid of looking cruel became easy to guide. That had been Anna's old weakness. Not kindness itself, but the need to be seen as kind at every moment. She still wanted to remain decent. She simply had no interest in remaining naive. That evening, the team stayed late for the first full rehearsal. The large conference room blazed with white light. Laptops, chargers, sticky notes, and half-finished paper cups covered the table. Ethan handled the presentation flow. Anna led the strategic section. Lily managed data support and file backups. Director Grant sat at the far end, occasionally asking one question at a time, each one short enough to make whoever answered feel their pulse in their teeth. Anna was midway through slide 17 when the projected screen suddenly switched to a different file. Not the pitch deck, an internal note set, untrimmed, raw, full of blunt commentary on the client's weaknesses and competitor vulnerabilities. Exactly the kind of material that could destroy trust if it ever appeared in front of a real client. The room went still. Lily shot up first. Oh no, I must have opened the wrong file. The first time, that exact moment had cost Anna precious seconds. She had frozen, watching disaster happen instead of stepping into it. By the next day, the story spreading through the office had become simple and brutal. She wanted the spotlight, but couldn't even manage her own materials. Now, Anna crossed to the control desk in 2 smooth steps, blacked out the projector, and turned back to the room. It's fine. This is why we do internal rehearsals. Her voice stayed even, neither loud nor defensive. She reopened the correct deck, restored the slide they had been on, and continued without rushing. Lily, after this, please help me verify the backup naming rules. The draft notes and presentation files are sitting too close together. Lily opened her mouth to apologize in that thin, trembling voice of hers, but Director Grant cut across before she could build a scene around it. Not just file names, he said, looking directly at her. Starting tomorrow, all official files follow a standardized naming structure. Lily drafts the rule, Anna reviews it. Whole team gets it by 9. Yes, sir, Lily said, biting the inside of her cheek as she sat. The rehearsal ended close to 9. People packed up slowly, exhausted but not grim. That alone marked a break from the past. At the conference room door, Ethan stopped Anna. That note file, accident or intent?
Anna did not answer immediately. The hallway lights, triggered by motion, cast a pale band of white across the floor. Her shadow ran beside his, and for a moment she remembered a different night in a different version of this building, when she had stayed alone to recheck every slide after everyone else had quietly decided she was no longer worth saving. "I don't have proof," she said, "but you have a judgment." A humorless smile touched her mouth. "You really don't let people hide." He folded his arms and waited. "I don't think it was an accident," she said at last. "Too many little mistakes lately have landed exactly where they could embarrass me." "I agree." The reply came so fast that it startled her. "You believe me?" "I believe patterns," Ethan said. Then, after a beat, "There's something else. Tonight I heard one of your thoughts." Anna's shoulders tightened. Which one? That if someone genuinely opened the wrong file, they'd focus on fixing it before checking who was watching. She said nothing. Ethan exhaled. For the record, I still hate this whole hearing people's thoughts situation. It erases boundaries. But from a management standpoint, it has shown me one useful thing. What? You're nowhere near as chaotic as people assumed. The sentence landed strangely, almost tender if it had come from anyone else, almost painful because it had taken something this bizarre for him to see her clearly. I'm trying to control it, Anna said. Keep doing that. He checked the time, then looked back at her. And be careful. People who are used to winning by playing the victim get reckless once the role stops working. He left her there with that warning. He was right. The next move came the very next morning. Just before the team rehearsal notes were due to circulate, an anonymous screenshot appeared in the small creative group chat. It showed a cropped conversation between Anna and a freelancer. Everything above and below one line had been cut away, leaving only this. If this version stays this slow, it would be faster for me to do it myself. No context, no follow-up, no sign of the joking line she had sent immediately afterward, or the extra rush payment she had approved because the freelancer had stayed online until 10 that night. The implication was obvious. Anna was arrogant, controlling, insulting behind people's backs. Her phone buzzed with private messages almost instantly. Anna, there's something weird in the group. She read the screenshot and nearly laughed. In her old life, this same trick had worked beautifully. No one asked for context. No one wanted complexity. A small, ugly image was easier to believe than an inconveniently decent truth. This time, she captured the full conversation and posted it directly under the cropped image. Thanks to whoever flagged this, sharing the full exchange here so no one loses context. We're still working well together. Then she tagged the freelancer politely and asked, could you confirm the conversation from that night, please, just so there's no misunderstanding? The reply came within a minute. Yes, of course. Anna was joking in that line, and she sent extra payment because I finished the urgent revision late. The group chat fell silent so completely it felt electrical. 4 desks away, Lily stared at her monitor without moving. Her expression barely changed, but her fingers were clamped too tightly around the mouse. A thought came to Anna, cold and exact. She doesn't want to destroy me in one visible blow. She wants to wear my reputation down with 100 tiny scratches until the day I finally cry out and everyone decides I'm simply too sensitive. Chairs shifted around the room. People had heard that too. And for the first time, Anna understood that the speaker in her chest was not only a curse. If she stayed calm enough, it could become a beam of light aimed into the corners other people kept carefully dark. The rest of the morning rehearsal passed without incident. No more wrong files, no more spills, no more trembling apologies designed to redirect sympathy. Everything became too smooth. Anna knew better to mistake silence for surrender. Sometimes it was only the inhale before the next strike.
Chapter 4. Data Doesn't Lie. The stronger move did not come during office hours. It came at 11 that night, when the building held only security lights, long empty hallways, and the thin mechanical breath of air systems running for people who had already gone home. Anna no longer made a habit of staying late. In her first life, voluntary overtime had slowly sanded her down into a person who was always tired, always irritable, always one private disappointment away from collapse. But after the suspiciously flawless day, an unease remained in her like a wire pulled too tight. Lily had gone quiet,
and people who depended on performance rarely grew quiet unless they were planning their next scene. So after showering, changing into sleep clothes, and trying unsuccessfully to settle her mind, Anna reopened her laptop and checked the revision history for the entire North Star folder. 20 minutes later, she was back in a car heading to the office. The night guard recognized her and only asked one question before letting her upstairs. The work floor was dark, except for rows of motion-triggered lights blinking on as she walked. There was something eerie about standing alone in a space that had once held the loneliness of her first ending. It hurt and clarified at the same time. She logged into the internal drive from the common workstation. The files themselves seemed untouched, no missing slides, no obvious tampering. But in the access settings, she noticed a line she had never properly examined before. An external device had logged into the project folder through the internal VPN the previous night at 10:47 p.m. The session had lasted 3 minutes. Not her machine, not Ethan's, not a printer terminal. Working late too? The male voice behind her was low enough to make her turn sharply. Noah Reed, the head of data strategy, stood in the aisle with his sleeves rolled up, one button at the collar undone, a can of black coffee in his hand. He moved through the company so quietly that people sometimes forgot he was in the room until he spoke. But when he did speak, people listened. He was the kind of person whose numbers could end arguments before they grew decorative. In her first life, Noah had been the only one to send her a message after she was quietly demoted to a support stream. If you need system logs, come find me. She had been too worn down to hold on to even that small rope. By the time she remembered it, she was already in the hospital, already realizing how many chances she had let slip past because she was too tired to believe anyone meant them. "Noah," she stood. "You're still here?" "Server sync alert." He glanced at her screen. "You?" She hesitated for only a second before deciding not to waste the moment on caution. "I think someone accessed the project folder after hours." He stepped closer. The scent of black coffee, paper, and something faintly woody moved with him. One hand braced lightly against the desk while his eyes traveled across the log lines with quick precision. "This isn't a company device. Personal laptop connected through the internal VPN the previous night at 10:47 p.m. The session had lasted 3 minutes. Not her machine, not Ethan's, not a printer terminal.
Working late too? The male voice behind her was low enough to make her turn sharply. Noah Reed, the head of data strategy, stood in the aisle with his sleeves rolled up, one button at the collar undone, a can of black coffee in his hand. He moved through the company so quietly that people sometimes forgot he was in the room until he spoke. But when he did speak, people listened. He was the kind of person whose numbers could end arguments before they grew decorative. In her first life, Noah had been the only one to send her a message after she was quietly demoted to a support stream. "If you need system logs, come find me." She had been too worn down to hold on to even that small rope. By the time she remembered it, she was already in the hospital, already realizing how many chances she had let slip past because she was too tired to believe anyone meant them. "Noah," she stood, "you're still here?" Server sync alert. He glanced at her screen. "You?" She hesitated for only a second before deciding not to waste the moment on caution. "I think someone accessed the project folder after hours." He stepped closer. The scent of black coffee, paper, and something faintly woody moved with him. One hand braced lightly against the desk while his eyes traveled across the log lines with quick precision. "This isn't a company device. Personal laptop connected through the internal VPN." "Can you tell whose?" "If I use the admin trail, yes." Anna looked up. "Do you have access?" "Yes." His tone stayed as calm as if they were discussing room temperature.
But I can't open private logs just because you have a feeling. She lowered her eyes. He was right. However many suspicious incidents stood between her and Lily, they were still not formal proof. If Noah pulled records based only on her suspicion and it became known, he could be the one in trouble. "Sorry," she said. "I know that puts you in a bad position." "It does," he said with maddening honesty. Then he dragged out the chair beside her and sat down. "That doesn't mean there's no proper way to handle it." He logged into the admin console and pointed at the access timeline. "If unusual activity happens again, I can place an alert rule on the project folder under the justification of client data security. Then every future event is logged under standard compliance procedure. No one can argue with that." Anna looked at him. "You'd do that?" "I'd protect the company from a data leak." He took a sip of coffee. "You just happened to be sitting closest to the accident." His words were dry. The kindness inside them was not. "Thank you." "Not worth thanking me yet." He typed in a sequence of commands, then created the alert rule. "From now on, if there's unauthorized access, both the folder owner and I get an email." Half the weight in Anna's chest lifted. The other half grew heavier. If she had gone to Noah sooner in her first life, things might have broken differently. But people who came back were not allowed to live only on regret. She inhaled once and asked the question that had been pressing at her all week. "Noah, have you ever heard my thoughts?" His fingers paused above the keyboard. "Yes." She laughed under her breath, tired and a little embarrassed. "So everyone knows." "Not everyone. Mostly people near you, and mostly when you're under strain." He turned his head toward her. "I first heard it about 2 months ago." "You thought I was unstable?" His brow drew together as if the question offended the structure of logic itself. "I thought you were exhausted." That answer struck far deeper. "Why?" "Because people who are truly okay don't think in that many layers at once." He spoke slowly, carefully, as if he were reading from something he had measured. "You worked normally on the surface, but underneath you were apologizing to yourself, resenting other people, and trying not to disturb anyone, all at the same time. That's not madness. That's what someone sounds like when they're close to breaking." For a moment, Anna could not speak. Outside the glass, the city ran in ribbons of gold and red beneath the night. Inside, the office held only the whisper of cooling fans and the breathing of 2 people who were too tired to pretend at ease. No one in her first life had ever named her condition that cleanly. She had hidden her exhaustion the way other people hid flaws. To hear it recognized without judgment made something in her chest ache. "I did break," she said softly. "Once." Noah looked at her a beat longer than usual, but he did not ask what she meant. Some people were gracious enough to know that not every truth needed excavating at midnight. Instead, he asked, "What are you planning to do about Lily?" Anna blinked. "You suspect her too?" He gave the slightest curve of a smile. "You think you're the only person here who knows how to watch? People can be misled by surface behavior. Data can't." She stared at the screen, at the newly armed alert rule. "At first I thought exposing her would be enough, but it isn't. I want back what I lost, my work, my reputation, people's trust, and the feeling that I don't have to be ashamed of my own mind." "That's ambitious," he said. "I already lost 1 life. I've earned the right to want a lot." This time he laughed, quietly enough that the empty room seemed to keep it. At that exact moment, the system gave a soft notification ping. Both of them bent toward the monitor. An email alert appeared. "Unusual access detected. North Star Project. Time, 11:18 p.m. Device, personal laptop via VPN." Anna held her breath while Noah opened the live trace. His expression shifted the instant his eyes reached the device identity. "It's the shared creative account," he said. but the second factor code went to a phone number ending in 8821. Anna knew that number. She remembered hearing Lily recite it at the cafe counter weeks earlier while collecting loyalty points. Even so, she kept her voice even. "Can you verify the owner?" Noah ran another short query. HR contact data flashed open. Lily Monroe. The room changed temperature. Anna stared at the name. The feeling that moved through her was not triumph, not shock either, only a sharp coldness down her spine. Proof did not erase old pain. It merely changed its shape. "What did she do?" Anna asked. Noah opened the activity history. Copied 2 files, deleted 1 backup, then logged out. The deleted file can be restored. The system kept the version trail. Anna closed her eyes for a second. So it had all been deliberate. The missing files, the badly timed errors, the careful leaks, the slow erosion of her credibility in the first life had never been a tragic cluster of misunderstandings. It had been design. "What now?" Noah asked. Anna opened her eyes. In the dark monitor reflection, her face looked quieter and harder than it once had. "If we send this straight to Director Grant tonight, she'll cry and say she only wanted to double-check the files for me because she was worried about tomorrow." She spoke slowly, already tracing the likely script. "One piece of evidence won't be enough to kill that role. I need a situation where she can't escape through fragility." "You want to lure her into doing it again?"
"I want her to believe she still controls the board," Anna said. "People who win through little manipulations don't stop after one success. They ask for more." Noah tapped the coffee can with one finger, thinking. "I can restore the deleted backup and create a bait draft. If someone opens or edits it, the trail will be even cleaner." Anna stared at him and then laughed, surprised into it. "You're terrifying." "Thank you. I was complimenting you." "I know." An odd, easy rhythm settled between them after that, turning the lonely office into something almost livable. They spent another hour restoring the file, tightening permissions, and planting a decoy draft with hidden watermarks and deliberately unstable retention numbers, just plausible enough to tempt someone nosy enough to believe they had found privileged information. When they finished, Noah opened a disk drawer and pulled out an unopened packet of savory crackers. "Eat," he said. "Even people with second lives need carbohydrates." Anna froze. He kept his eyes on the screen. "Educated guess. You look less like someone who suddenly matured and more like someone who got thrown back an opportunity and intends not to waste it." Her throat tightened. "You don't think that sounds absurd?" "I work in data," he said, standing and reaching for his keys. "My job is to separate what sounds unreasonable but is true from what sounds reasonable and is complete nonsense." He took 3 steps, then turned back, tone as even as ever. "Anna, live this life as if revenge is the only point of getting it back. The first person worth saving is you." Then he was gone, the elevator doors closing around him. Anna stood alone in the bright patchwork of night lighting, crackers in hand, staring at her own reflection in the glass. She wanted to laugh, cry, sit down on the floor and breathe until the heaviness left her body. Instead, she opened the packet, ate 1 dry, salty cracker, and laughed for real. This time, she had an ally, and this time, she would not let one pass by. Chapter 5. The Client Meeting. On the morning of the client presentation, Anna arrived 40 minutes early. Dawn had only just begun to lift. The hallway still carried the scent of floor cleaner and the first brew of office coffee. She passed the pantry, gathered a kettle of hot water, chamomile tea, a few granola bars and packets of sugar, and brought them into the conference room. On the table, she laid out a final checklist: main deck,
backup deck, spare USB, printed packets, offline data export, tech contact, Q&A role assignments. In her old life, she would have called this kind of preparation excessive. She had always been afraid of becoming one of those people who tried to control everything because they trusted nothing. But after losing an entire life while believing that doing your best was always enough, she understood something harsher and more useful. Some efforts deserved to be protected with redundancy. At 6:55, Lily walked in. She paused for a fraction of a second when she saw the room already set, then smiled. "You came in so early." Anna turned from the materials binder and handed her a cup of hot tea. "Warm up a little. It's cold in here." Lily accepted it with both hands, caught briefly off script. "Thank you." "Could you help me distribute the client packets when they arrive?" Anna pointed to a neatly separated stack. "Yours is marked here. I highlighted the data pages so you can follow the numbers more easily." There was a difference between real gentleness and performative softness, and Anna understood it now. Real gentleness did not collect debt. It did not glow at people and silently ask them to remember who had been gracious first. She was simply doing what needed to be done, clearly and without theater. Lily glanced at the color-coded packets. "You prepare everything so well," she murmured. "It makes me feel useless." The line sounded self-conscious on the surface. In reality, it was an invitation for someone else to reassure her, to move immediately into the role of comforter, while she occupied the far safer role of delicate concern. In her first life, Anna had fallen into that pattern every time. Not today. "No one is useless," she said with a small smile. "Everyone just has to do their part well." A sharper thought rose underneath. Someone who is truly fragile tries not to burden others. Someone used to being indulged turns every shortcoming into something that should be loved. Footsteps in the hall slowed, then moved on. Lily lowered her gaze and blew across the surface of the tea, steam obscuring whatever moved through her eyes. By 7:30, the room had filled. Ethan reviewed the answer sequence for likely client questions. Director Grant confirmed arrival timing over the phone. Noah ran the final data connection check. When he passed behind Anna, their eyes met for a single beat. They needed not to. Last night's bait draft was sitting quietly in the system, waiting. At 8:12, Anna's phone lit up with a security alert. Draft North Star, accessed via personal device. Lily, at that exact moment, was standing at the end of the table with the client folders in her arms. Anna locked her phone screen without changing expression. She sent Noah one word: "Now." His reply came almost at once: "Seen." The North Star team arrived with 4 people, led by Helena Trent, their marketing director. After introductions, everyone took their seats and the presentation began. Ethan opened with market context. Anna followed with strategic positioning, her graphs arriving in sequence, her language firm and clean. Director Grant spoke only occasionally, mostly to emphasize implementation feasibility. For a while, the meeting flowed so well that Anna could almost feel Lily's patience thinning at the edges. Then Helena asked a deeper question than expected. "What is your projected post-campaign retention for the first quarter? Not top-line acquisition, actual hold." Anna had prepared for that. She shifted her hand toward the backup clicker, ready to bring up the extra slide. Lily spoke first. "I updated that late last night," she said, voice soft but just loud enough. "I think retention may only be around 12% now." Every head turned. 12% was terrible. If it were true, the entire proposed strategy would need reevaluation. Anna looked directly at Lily. Lily met her gaze with an expression that suggested she was only trying to be helpful, but the fingers clutching the packet edge had gone white. She had opened the bait draft, the one Noah had salted with plausible-looking but deliberately distorted retention numbers, internal enough to feel secret, wrong enough to expose whoever used them. In the first life, Anna would have flushed and started explaining too much at once, turning a manageable interruption into a visible unraveling. This time she only nodded, as if receiving a useful prompt. "Thanks, Lily," she said. "You're looking at the experimental draft from last night. The final forecast is 18 to 21%, depending on social channel allocation." She clicked to the backup slide. The corrected chart appeared, fully sourced, time-stamped, and clean. Seated beside the projector, Noah added only one sentence. "I can confirm this is the locked final data set from 7:10 this morning." That was enough. Helena nodded. "Good, then show me the downside scenario if the budget is cut by 10%. Anna moved straight into it, smoothly, without a trace of defensiveness. She answered one question after another with a warmth that did not weaken the precision of her points. Every long night of checking logs, every swallowed instinct to react the old way, every deliberate decision to gather evidence instead of pain, all of it came together in that single morning. The meeting ended just before 10. The client response was positive. Helena shook Director Grant's hand, then turned to Anna. "I like people who understand both strategy and detail. Your team coordinates well." Lily stood beside them, smiling, nails pressed half-moons into her own palm. After the clients were escorted to the elevators and the room finally exhaled, Director Grant's phone vibrated. Ethan's did too. Noah, still at the far end of the table, looked so composed it was almost suspicious.
Anna knew the moment had arrived. "Everyone stays 5 more minutes," Director Grant said, setting his phone down. "We have a document security issue." The room tightened instantly. Lily's face lost color, but not softness. What happened? Director Grant turned his laptop so the group could see. There were unauthorized after-hours accesses to the project folder last night and again this morning from a personal device. The system shows the shared creative account was used, with 2-factor authentication sent to your phone. Silence dropped hard. Lily widened her eyes and shook her head at once. Maybe someone borrowed my phone? Or maybe I logged in for someone and forgot to sign out?" Then she turned to Anna, tears already brightening her lashes. "Anna, did you ask me to review anything yesterday? I'm scared I'm remembering wrong." There it was again, the familiar tactic. Push everything into uncertainty. Drag someone else into the fog. Dilute responsibility until the truth had no edges left. But before Anna could respond, Noah spoke in the same quiet tone he used for server reports. This wasn't ordinary review access. The user opened a draft file outside the formal workflow and deleted a backup. The system restored the backup automatically. Ethan's hand flattened on the table. Why delete the backup? No one answered. Lily's mouth trembled. A tear fell. "I really only wanted to check things because I was worried there might be a problem this morning. Anna's been under so much pressure lately. I thought maybe I could help. I didn't know I had opened the wrong draft." Anna looked at her. That face, that trembling voice, those reddened eyes, once they had cut at Anna little by little until she had almost disappeared under the weight of her own self-doubt. But now, with the facts laid bare across the table, the performance looked thin, old, dependent on an innocence the data no longer allowed. Anna spoke slowly and clearly. "If you wanted to help me, you could have sent one message. You didn't need to log in by VPN in the middle of the night. You didn't need to open a restricted draft, and you definitely didn't need to delete a backup." Lily stared at her through tears. "So you think I did it on purpose?"
Anna was quiet for one beat. Then she met Lily's gaze without anger, without triumph, only with the steadiness of someone finally willing to ask the fair question. What exactly would satisfy you? Me doubting myself forever, or me pretending this didn't happen? The room went still. And inside Anna, the thought that rose was not loud, but it was sharp enough for those nearest to hear every word. I have yielded enough. Caring about others does not mean opening the door for them to step onto my name. No one moved. Lily dabbed at her face, but for the first time the sadness on it did not pull immediate sympathy from anyone. Too much had already been seen that morning. Who came early to prepare, who held the real numbers, who interrupted with the wrong file, whose phone sat behind the access log. The victim role only survives while the truth is incomplete. Once the facts are whole, it starts to look clumsy. Director Grant's voice dropped several degrees. This will not be settled in this room. Lily, hand your phone to IT for authentication review. Submit a written statement by this afternoon. Until there is a formal conclusion, you are not to access the project folder. Lily looked around the room as if still waiting for someone, anyone, to say it was all a misunderstanding, not serious enough, not final enough. No one did. As people began to leave, she slowed beside Anna and said in a voice stripped of sweetness, cold as water through stone, "You think you've won?" Anna did not turn. She aligned the edges of the paper packets one by one, straight as blades. "No," she said, "I'm only taking back what was mine to begin with." It was not a declaration of war. It was an answer arriving far too late for the woman who had died once already. And this time, she got to speak it while still alive. Chapter 6. When the Voice Came Home. The internal conclusion came 3 days later. 3 days was long enough for the rumor cycle to complete a full lap through the company, and short enough that no one had time to reshape the facts into a different story. Authentication history from Lily's phone, the VPN access trail, the edit marks on the bait draft, the timestamp on the deleted backup, together they formed a line too straight to argue with. Lily could no longer maintain that she had been trying to help in any innocent sense. In the statement she finally submitted, she wrote that she had checked the files after hours because she was afraid the project contained errors, and then, in a panic, had handled the wrong materials improperly. Not one sentence admitted how often she had used concern as a mask while quietly pushing someone else toward humiliation. But for HR and Director Grant, the documented behavior was more than enough. Formal discipline followed, then a transfer. The morning the result was announced, a light rain covered the windows. Anna stood in the pantry watching droplets trace silver lines down the glass and found that she felt far calmer than she had once imagined. She had always thought this day, if it ever came, would taste like vindication, like a debt repaid, like the clearing of an old stain. Instead, the strongest sensation was release. Not joy, exactly, more like the loosening of muscles after holding tension too long, like a swimmer who has spent hours fighting current and finally reaches shore with just enough strength left to sit down and breathe. "Are you hiding from work?" Megan's voice came from behind her. Anna turned to find her holding 2 cups of hot soy milk. "Only for 2 minutes." Megan handed one over and leaned against the doorway. "You're famous today. The whole floor sounds different." "How different?" "In the sense that people are finally realizing you were never just difficult for no reason." Megan sighed, then gave a sheepish smile. "Honestly, I was wary of you before, not because I disliked you, but because every time I spent too long nearby, I'd hear those fragments in my head and assume you were irritated with everything and everyone. I kept thinking I'd said the wrong thing and you were silently storing it up." Anna did not deny it. "I understand." "Now that I think about it," Megan said, "those thoughts always came up when you were in a position where you had to swallow too much. But because you never said any of it out loud, the rest of us only heard the pressure, not the reason. Then we started inventing our own explanations." That had been the tragedy of the first life in one clean sentence. People heard the noise of her inner strain, not the context, not the patience, not the effort it took to remain composed. They mistook the symptom for character. "What matters now," Anna said quietly, curling her fingers around the warm paper cup, "isn't what people heard, it's what we did afterward. I also made things worse by assuming I could endure everything without speaking." "That part is definitely changing. When you tagged the freelancer in the group chat, half the floor nearly stopped breathing."
Anna laughed too. "I learned that adults at work should communicate with records. Late lessons still count." Megan tipped her head. "By the way, is the thought thing still happening?" Anna was silent for a moment. "Yes. Are you scared of it?" She looked out at the rain. "Less than before." That was the truth. Since the client meeting, the phenomenon had weakened. It had not vanished entirely, but the distance between thought and spillover seemed longer, as if the pressure inside her had finally eased enough to stop bursting at the seams. Maybe the office had never been hearing a supernatural gift at all. Maybe people had simply been picking up the force of feelings she had compressed too long inside a place where everyone knew how to observe and almost no one knew how to ask. Anna did not know. This time, she did not force herself to solve every mystery before allowing herself to live. That afternoon, Director Grant called both her and Ethan into his office. Rain still touched the windows outside, but the room itself felt warmer. Yellow light, pale wood, the smell of files instead of tension. He skipped the preamble. "North Star selected us for implementation." Anna's heart gave one hard beat. "Anna, you'll be the content lead. Ethan oversees operations." Even expecting it did not soften the impact. "Thank you." He pushed his glasses back up the bridge of his nose and studied her longer than usual. "There's something else. I was considering promoting you before, but then—" He stopped, not out of uncertainty, but out of discipline. Then he chose honesty. "Then I heard too much about your attitude. Some of it came from exactly what people believed were your private thoughts." Anna sat straight. She did not look away. "I understand. I'm not apologizing for having doubts without enough information," he said in his crisp, unsentimental way. "That part is mine to answer for. But I do want to be clear about one thing. Your competence was never the problem. The problem was that you kept letting other people define the story about you before you spoke for yourself." The sentence went into the softest part of her and stayed there. "That won't happen again," she said. "Good." He turned to Ethan. "Help her with team management. Technical skill without boundaries gets eaten alive." Ethan nodded as if this matched a conclusion he had reached long ago. In the hallway afterward, rain tapped lightly at the glass wall. Ethan walked 2 paces ahead, then slowed for her. "Congratulations." "Thank you." "Don't say that too early." He pressed the elevator button. "Being a lead means you're about to meet upgraded versions of every kind of workplace drama." Anna laughed, and the ease of it surprised her. "I thought surviving Lily made me immune." "No one is immune to people," he said, watching the floor numbers descend. The elevator doors opened. They stepped inside. Just before they closed again, he added, still looking forward, "For what it's worth, I used to find you exhausting." Anna turned sharply. She almost barked a laugh. "That is a terrible way to congratulate someone." "I wasn't finished." The corner of his mouth lifted, rare enough to count as weather. "The last few weeks made me realize something. You weren't exhausting. You were someone who had gone too long without being on her own side." She did not know what to say to that. And then, because the universe still had a sense of timing, a thought slipped through her before she could stop it. If Ethan were just 10% kinder on the surface, half the company would stop being afraid of him.
He tilted his head toward her. Heard that. Anna covered her face with one hand and laughed. I forgot. I noticed. I'll let it go this time. The elevator opened on the server floor. Ethan stepped out first while Anna continued down to the office level, the lightness in her chest growing slowly but steadily. Maybe that was the real thing she had wanted back all along, not only justice, but the ability to speak to people without the constant terror of being misunderstood at every turn. She did not go home immediately that evening. Noah sent a short message, "Rooftop, if you're still here." Anna stared at the phone for a few seconds, then took her coat and went up. The air after rain was cool and clean. The rooftop was nearly empty. The city below spread out in lines of light like an enormous illuminated circuit board. Noah stood by the railing holding 2 hot coffees. When he saw her, he handed one over without asking what she wanted. That was his way of taking care of people. Quiet, exact, no extra flourishes. "All done?" he asked. "Partly." Anna wrapped both hands around the cup. Warmth moved into her fingers at once. "The rest, learning how to live differently, will take longer. Most worthwhile things don't come with deadlines." They both smiled. A gust of wind pushed a strand of hair across Anna's face. She brushed it aside, looked out across the wet city, and said something she had not planned to say. "In the other timeline, in the time before this, my life ended on a rainy night." Noah did not flinch. He did not stare at her as if she had become stranger than before. He simply turned his head slightly and waited. "I worked until I collapsed," she said, "and even then I still believed that if I tried just a little harder, people would eventually understand I wasn't useless. Later, I realized that was the wrong foundation from the start. No one is obligated to understand a person who never speaks honestly." "So you came back to fix it?" "At first, yes." A thin smile touched her mouth. "I wanted to expose Lily, make people regret it, take back every piece. But if revenge were the only point, I'd still be moving inside the path she created for me. I'd still be letting her define what matters." Noah looked toward the low clouds beyond the skyline. "So what do you choose now?" Anna was quiet. Far below, an ambulance cut through the streets in alternating blue and red flashes, like light stitching a wound through the night. "I choose to say the true thing at the right time," she answered. "I choose to keep records. I choose not to exhaust myself for the sake of seeming agreeable. I choose to trust people who've earned it, and I choose not to be ashamed that I was once weaker than I wanted to be." Noah nodded once. "Reasonable." Then, almost without intending it, one last thought escaped her, softer than breath. "I wish I had met you sooner." Noah turned to look at her. His eyes were steady, dark, and unexpectedly warm. "I heard that one too." Anna felt heat touch her face, but for the first time she did not panic. "Then keep it classified." "No promises," he said, the faintest smile appearing. "I might use it to negotiate dinner." She laughed. "That sounds like misuse of confidential data. Still more procedural than some people tried."
Wind moved across the rooftop carrying the last trace of rain. Under the distant lights, the city seemed to breathe. Anna leaned lightly against the railing and realized she was no longer standing at the edge of the life she had lost. The past was still there, so were the scars, but they were no longer a cage around her throat. When they finally headed back inside, she paused and looked at him. "Noah?" "Yeah?" "If one day the voice inside my head stops leaking out completely, would you miss it?" He thought for a second, then answered, "No, because by then you'll probably be saying what matters with your own voice anyway." That answer stayed with her all the way down the elevator, through the quiet hallway and into her small apartment that night. She slept deeply, No hospital stairs, no rain against glass, no dream of trying to explain herself to people who could only hear the darkest pieces of her. The next morning, the office looked exactly as it always had. The lights were on, the air conditioning hummed too cold, the coffee smelled faintly burnt. Only Anna was no longer the same person inside it. As she passed the pantry, a few coworkers greeted her first. One asked about the implementation schedule. Another mentioned the team dinner. No one looked at her with the careful wariness she used to feel pressing from across the room. Some people were probably still curious about the strange matter of her inner voice. Some were surely unconvinced. It no longer mattered the way it once had. Because this time, even if no one heard a single thought from her again, Anna knew she would never let other people write her story in her place. She set down her coffee, opened her laptop, and looked at the new project plan on the screen. A thought formed, clear, calm, and warm. I do not need another life in order to defeat anyone. I only need to live honestly with myself, and the truth will eventually find its own voice. No one at the nearby desks looked up. Anna stilled for 1 second. Then she smiled. At last, the voice inside her had returned to where it belonged, within her, bright and steady, no longer forced to shout in order to be heard.
Hey there! If you enjoy our audio content, don't forget to hit that like button and share this video with your friends. Most importantly, click subscribe and ring the bell to stay updated with everything Zuzu Audio. Support the channel and join our community today.